Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am Michael Sherlock. I'm CEO of two different companies. Shock Your Potential is a global leadership and sales training organization, and Kukua Biz is a global staffing company where we match talented professionals from Kenya with small businesses around the world. But through our YouTube channel and our other forms of reaching out to all of you, we know that there's things that you're most interested in about your career. And frankly, helping people really pursue the career that they love to achieve their long-term goals is something I'm incredibly passionate about. So through these channels, especially YouTube, we seek to inspire and motivate and also, give some very helpful hints to help you really excel in your career. So I'm glad you've joined us today. This is the second in a 10-part series. Yes, I know 10 parts is a lot, but it's to help you get promoted. You may be saying, Michael, why in the heck do I need 10 parts to do this? Well, because truly getting a promotion is more than just hitting the apply button or telling your boss that you want to apply for that open position. It's about making strategic moves that help you get what you want. And as you learned in part one, it's also about making sure that that promotion you're going after today is really what you want, that it's something that's in line with what your long-term career objectives are. Because sometimes people will make decisions about promotions because it looks so appealing at the moment, or it might be a lot more money, or maybe they think that's the right thing that they should do at that point in time. And I really encourage you through that first part to sit back a little bit and ask yourself some deeper questions to make sure not only that what you're doing aligns with your long-term objectives, but that you are really truly making the great steps forward that help you achieve what those goals are. So today we're going to talk about something in line with that, but taking a next step. So let's say we got done with part one and you guys are like, I'm in, Michael, I want this promotion. Today we're going to cover my top 10 tips for understanding that next job that you want and using that knowledge to help you get it, or at least give you the best chance to get it. So here we go. Tip number one, get the full job description. Now, it actually seems a little easier than it sounds, or maybe it sounds a little easier than it is. See, there's a funny thing about job descriptions. They're not always complete. They're not always current. They're not always posted or available. And especially if you're applying for something that's in-house or a newly created position, sometimes companies don't have those things put together. But it's important that you make your best effort to get the job description, because we're going to use that job description for several different points of this process. And it's important that you get as much information as possible to not only make sure you can put the best part of you forward for this, but that you're also making sure that it is the right job for you. So when we do that, look, I understand that you may say, Michael, a job description is just a job description. It's just a basic starting point. And that is true. But the job description tells you a lot about what's important in that position and what's important to that company. And those are vital pieces of information. So let's say you've got that now and you read this job description. Tip number two is go back and watch part one of this 10-part series again. Look, I know I'm asking you to do this over and over again. And what I'm asking you to do is ask yourself, is this the job I really want? After you got that job description, you want to sit back and say, okay, is it? And if so, then great. But if not, then there's an opportunity there for you to have, I guess, some questions for what you really want and know how to take your career to the next levels, maybe in other ways. But if it is what you want, then you're going to be even more confident. Now, here's the critical element here. This could be a promotion. This could be a brand new position. In reality, the issue is the same. Any job should be mutually beneficial to both the individual and the company. So everybody needs to have a win-win here. And sometimes we don't put ourselves in that winning position. And sometimes we may be applying for something that isn't in the best interest of that company if we're to take those roles. So this is a little bit of the self-reflection. Tip number three, when you take that job description, I want you to highlight it. I want you to underline things. I want you to circle them. And then I want you to ask yourself, what experiences do I have? What strengths do I bring to the table? What training have I had that are directly correlated to what this position is required and expected to do? And as you make that list, it's going to help you gain some great confidence in what you're doing. It'll also highlight a couple of other things, but I want you to keep this in mind. You don't have to be 100% aligned to that job. In fact, it's interesting that a survey, this is still a landmark survey from 2014, but it's still so valid today. It was done by Hewlett Packard, and they surveyed all of their employees across the globe, and they were trying to figure out what makes people actually step up for that job or promotion. Now, what's so landmark about this study is that the results showed that men believed that if they had 60% of the qualifications of a position, then they would apply for it. But women tended to believe they needed 100% of the qualifications to apply for it. Now, I'm hoping that's changing a little bit in our world today, and I hope that you realize that no one needs to be 100%. We just need to have the right balance, and there's no magic number of what that percentage is. But it's about the confidence that we get when we realize what things do align and what things are clearly important. Now, some skills and experience you may be missing for that job, but that's not the end of the world either. Some of them may be easy to learn or be trained in. And when you know that and you have that information, you can use it not only in the interview process, but in some of the steps that we'll be using up to it. So let me give you a for instance. Let's say that you are going for a position that requires you to have certification in a really specific kind of software. And you have lots of certifications, but you don't have it in that software. You're very confident you can do it and you can get it, but you don't have it right now. So now here's where you can use this to your full advantage. So if I were being asked that in the interview and someone said, but Michael, we need you to have software version D, and you are not certified in that, what's your status? Then I could say, I'm currently certified in softwares A, B, and C. Now, I don't currently have software D certification, but this is what I know. I've already reviewed it. I understand the certification process and the training, and I've actually already begun the training materials. I'm confident that within 2 weeks of taking this position, I will be certified. Now, here's the key. You want to be open and honest. I mean, if it's something that you don't think you can get in that time frame, don't say it. But if it is something that you know you can achieve, let's use some timelines so people know what to expect. But also don't sell yourself short, because just because you don't have it now doesn't mean you can't get it later. And there's something that is being taught to me when somebody has this kind of proactive approach. See, it shows me that somebody's already got their plan in motion. They're not waiting to get the job in order to do it. So notice, I didn't say, if you hire me, I'll get the certification. What I said is, I've already begun the process, and I don't need you to hire me in order for me to do it. I'm motivated on my own to get that certification, regardless of whether or not you promote me. That tells me something about that person. It tells me how committed they are, not only to this potential position, but frankly, to their whole career. Tip number 4, here we go. I know I'm throwing out a lot of numbers because this one's going to have a 5 in it, even though it's tip number 4. Come up with 5 examples of something that you have achieved that makes you an excellent choice for the position. Now, here's a couple things you need to know. The examples must be true. You need them to be well thought out. In fact, I'm going to have you write them out. And they should cover various elements of the position to help you really highlight and showcase where your strengths are. So let me give you a for instance. Let's say you're currently in a sales role and you are trying to be promoted to a sales management position. So in this, in this ideal world, it's in a medical field. Okay. So it's a medical device field where you call on doctors. So here's a couple of things. You want to make sure that you're coming up with examples that cover things like your sales achievement or your leadership experience, your ability to motivate others, your knowledge of medical terminology, your ability to have great customer successes. Those things are very aligned to the position, but also to your own experience. And what you want to do is you want to actually give me stories. You want to tell me a story through this whole achievement. And it should be written like a story. And I want you to write it down, because the process of writing this down is really important. And a story, well, what does a story have? A story has a beginning and a middle and an end, but it also has drama or suspense. So you want to create the possibility of failure, but make sure that you have a happy ending that shows how you overcame those obstacles to find success. So let's give you an example. Let's say that in your sales role that you have just been in, you came into an underperforming territory, but while you were there, you brought it to budget and in fact, sometimes exceeded budget. So, I mean, that's a story. It's a story. It's kind of a boring story. So how do I make that a better story, but still make it honest? Well, you have to be honest with it, but you want to build some of that suspense. So you might, if you're going to do it a little differently, you might say something like this. You know, when I came on board, the previous sales rep had not been successful. In fact, the territory had not hit budget for 2 years. And I wasn't sure coming in if that was because that person wasn't a good sales rep, or maybe the competition was really strong, or maybe we had trouble engaging with the doctors. I don't know. So instead of just jumping into my sales mode, I went on a fact-finding mission. I wanted to ask questions. So what I did was ask a lot of questions. And within 6 weeks, I learned something really, really important. I found out that that previous sales rep had been overly aggressive. And so basically turned off the doctors and the nurses and the gatekeepers, and they didn't even let him in. So by the fact that I came in and just asked questions, they were not only happy to tell me what the other person did wrong, but they were also incredibly open to me to answer my questions and to give me really honest feedback about our product and where it stands in terms of the competition. So what I know is by my 4th month, I hit budget. And from that point on, I either hit or exceeded budget every month in that first year in the position. Now, see, that's a great story. And if those elements are true and you've used the true elements of your story, that's a compelling message. It tells me that you're willing to take chances. It tells me you're willing to ask questions, to do things beyond just the expected and do things that will actually lead to results. And you might also be interested to know that that story is actually a true story. It was told to me by an employee who was a salesperson who wanted to become a sales manager. And you guessed it, I did promote him. Tip number 5. Once you've identified the 5 best stories, practice telling them. Yes, I know many people call this role play, but it's really, really important. Practice is so incredibly important. Find somebody who's going to listen to you and somebody who will give you good, honest feedback. So the goal with stories is to brag without bragging. In other words, I do want to hear about your successes, but I also want to know the challenges you face in getting to those successes, or frankly, in not achieving success. In fact, many times when I would interview sales managers, I would ask them specifically for, give me an example of a time that you had a really challenging issue in front of you, what you tried to do to overcome it, and what happened even if it did not result in a positive outcome. And what I really want to hear is one of your failures. And the reason that I did that is, number one, I wanted to hear people that were comfortable sharing failures, but always could turn that into the learnings that they took from that and how they applied that understanding later. But also I want to know that people realize that we're not all perfect and we're not going to get everything right. So when we share some of those challenges, and we bring it in the context of the whole story of what we're trying to accomplish, then I know you're actually thinking about your position. That makes you a better candidate for me than the person who only wants to brag without making a compelling story that actually shows reality. Tip number 6, write out a list of all the people that you can think of that you know would discuss your abilities and would help you to succeed in that role. Now, you may not use this whole list. You may not use any of them, although I'm going to ask you to use at least 2 of them. But the reason I want you to do this is this list is going to help you do 2 things. Number 1, it's going to help you to remember stories you might not have. So that's important. But number 2, we're going to take 2 of those people and we're going to do something with them. Tip number 7, we're going to take those 2 people, at least 2 or 3. I wouldn't go too crazy at the beginning, but you're going to go to at least 2 of those people and you're going to ask them something. You're going to ask them to write you a LinkedIn recommendation. We're going to be talking about LinkedIn. Let me tell you, I got it coming. But here's the thing, you want them to write a LinkedIn recommendation based on something specific. Specific is the key word there, not general. He's a nice guy. She's wonderful to work with, blah, 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 blah. I want something specific. So if you want extra credit with them and me, you can also give them a sample of what to write out. So let me give you an example. Let's say that my previous boss, her name was Sally, it was a couple companies ago, and she was always calling on me to help with team building exercises in our division. And let's say she loved what I did and I got to do that over and over again. And now I'm up for a position where team building is an important part, but the position I've been in now, I haven't done any team building. Sally was the last person I did that with. Now, this is very strategic. If I go back to Sally and I email her, I call her, I do whatever, and I say something like this, Sally, I'd like to ask a favor from you. I'm being considered for a promotion, and team building is a really important part of the position. As you know, you loved it. You loved the things I did. In my current position, though, I haven't had the opportunities to do those things. Would be incredibly helpful to me if you could write me a LinkedIn recommendation that highlighted my ability to lead team building activities. So, and you could write Sally something as simple as, Michael was my go-to team member for creating new and dynamic team building exercises. She motivated all of us. She was always researching new ways to keep us engaged, and her efforts helped our team to consistently achieve or exceed budget. Now, see, I've done something here. I've given Sally exactly what she could write based on feedback I know she's given me in the past, or things that maybe she's written me in a nice note. As I remember in this email you wrote XYZ. Can I use that to have you insert that into my LinkedIn recommendation? So she might use different words, or she might use exactly what you gave her because it's easy. But regardless, now you have a LinkedIn recommendation that clearly shows a previous manager highlighting you and complimenting you for an area that is important to your current and potential position. Tip number 8, we're sticking with LinkedIn for a little bit longer. Yes. This is going to take a little time for some people. This is about making sure that you are broadcasting messages on an incredibly important platform in a place where people are looking. So depending on the survey that you read, between 60 and 70% of employers go to LinkedIn first to check out a potential hire or promotion and see what they've got going on their page. Now, we're just going to hit here a couple of the highlights, like simple things like, I have almost 19,000 followers. I didn't realize until about a year ago that my profile picture was only visible to my first connections. Make sure you have a great and professional profile picture and make sure it is public so it can be seen. So second thing, just a couple little highlights is your information better be up to date. It should be aligned also to the position that you are seeking. So like a good suggestion is make sure that some of the bullet points that are in that new job description are also showing up somewhere as they are true and where they are true in your experience section. You want to be able to have that be visually and very easy to see. Visually stimulating and easy to see, that people can see it right off the bat. Your LinkedIn profile should not look exactly like your resume. This is no room or no time to have 15 bullet points about things, but a few of the highlights that match the new job description are very smart. But what most employers are really looking for when they're checking out your LinkedIn profile has to do with your activity. That's that section where you are posting or commenting or liking or sharing other people's content, and they want to see what you're doing with it. Because here's the thing, that tells a story about you. It tells an incredible story about you. And if there's nothing, that tells a story. If there's a lot, it tells a story. And whether it's good or bad, also tells a lot of story. But what it does tell you is what your beliefs are, what your values are, what your professional objectives are. Make sure it is aligned with the image that you want to present. Tip number 9, research the company. Now, we've already done it for the position. Now it's time for the company. Even if you still currently work for them and are looking to get promoted within your workplace, this is really important. What is being said about them? What are the reviews on Glassdoor? What does the company website say? What do they say on their social media channels? It's important not only for you to stay current on what they're trying to promote and what messages they want out there in the public eye, But it's also important for you to know if this is a company you truly want to work for, or if there are any problems you need to be aware of. Let me tell you, I have someone who worked for me once upon a time who was really excited to take a new promotion. And I remember having the dialogue with him because he was leaving my company and going somewhere else. And I said, have you really reviewed this? Because I'm not sure if this is the company you want to go to. And he was really excited about the promotion. It was a great opportunity. And I say that in air quotes because great opportunity doesn't always mean reality. But what he didn't realize is that company had an incredibly toxic work environment and incredibly high turnover. And so when he left, he thought it was the dream job because it gave him a lot of the things that he thought he wanted and needed then. But it was really actually devastating for his career. And those are the things that we can find out by paying more attention about what's going on and what other people have said about organizations. They're not always right. Sometimes people are very cranky, but it's just important to know. And finally, tip number 10, here we go, at least of this section, is to review everything we've done so far today. So the job, the company, our answers, our great stories, the people that are going to write reviews, and ask yourself, after all the knowledge you've learned from the research, is this still the job you want? Again, I know you're like, Michael, why do you keep asking that question? And I'm asking the question because it's important. It's incredibly important. And I'm hoping that the answer is yes, because if it is, then we're ready to move on to the next step. But if it isn't, by continually asking yourself, by stopping and reflecting, you won't make a jump that is too fast or not well thought out. You'll make a jump when and where it is correct for you. So if we are getting a yes, though, then we're ready to move on to the next phase of how to get promoted. And that is turning your resume into a marketing tool. It's going to be a lot of pieces of this, a lot of fun, and a little bit of work. I'm not going to lie. So thanks for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you again next week in part 3 of How Do I Get Promoted? And as always, make sure if you like what we're putting out here, subscribe to our channel, hit that thumbs up button, leave some comments, hopefully good ones. And we respond to every single one. So love having you with us. As always, remember that how to get promoted is just simply a way of knowing how to shock your potential.